Okay, taking a look at the Week 1 injury report for fantasy football and how it affects your team with the injuries after Week 1. Their big injuries seem to focus on just a couple of teams this past weekend. A lot of little things like Jamel Charles with a quad injury, but he looks like he's going to be expected to play and not miss any time. One of the teams that was hit hard were the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Steelers don't have a whole lot of offensive talent. But they took some big hits this past week. LaRod Stevens-Howling, who no one has on their fantasy roster, was hurt and is done for the year. He has been backed up by Jonathan Dwyer, and then Felix Jones is the other running back they have in Pittsburgh now, so that doesn't bode well for the Steelers offense. They also lost offensive lineman Maurice Pouncey. He's out for the year as well. So a bad offensive line gets even worse. So if you do have Ben Roethlisberger on your team, be aware that the offensive line for Pittsburgh is even worse than it was, and it was pretty bad to begin with. And also Larry Foote on the defensive side, maybe the only area of Pittsburgh to have their someone on the Steelers on your roster, also out for the year. So look for the Steelers defense to suffer as well. It doesn't look like, to me, any Pittsburgh Steelers player should be on your team. If you do have Roethlisberger, look for a backup quarterback or a different quarterback that would be available to you. Really wouldn't think Jonathan Dwyer is much of a fantasy player at all. And the defense, those you can bounce around week to week anyway. Another team that's got a lot more injuries is the New England Patriots. Now, Rob Gronkowski, as the game is Thursday, is not expected to play. Look for him to be back in Week 3. They did lose Shane Vereen, who I had in many different leagues. Terrific player, but I was expecting him to be more of the Patriots version of Darren Sproles this year. He had a great first week as far as running the ball with over 100 yards. But he's now on the IR. He can come back, but he's out for a minimum of 8 weeks with an injury, a broken bone in his wrist. There are other players to replace him with. If you're looking for someone to replace him with, it looks like Vic Ballard is at least a starting running back that most people don't have in their fantasy roster. He's held in mostly less than 50% of leagues. Another guy is Joique Bell, who got a lot of action as the #2 running back behind Reggie Bush in Detroit. And you might also want to look at someone like Knowshon Moreno. Won't carry the ball on the goal line for the Broncos, but probably the most consistent running back that Denver has. As far as other players, the big one, of course, would be Danny Amendola. Now, Amendola had a groin injury. They're easy to re-aggravate. So what I would expect is that Amendola, who did come back to play most of the game against Buffalo, I don't expect him to play this week. It's just a guess on my part. I'd expect for the Patriots on a short week, since they play on Thursday, to take the cautious route and not play him whatsoever. So if you do have Amendola, at least for week 2, look for someone else to replace him on your fantasy roster. Zach Sudfeld is also injured for for the Patriots. Look for another tight end if he is on your starting list. Otherwise, he probably should be a backup anyway. And there are plenty of tight ends that are available that are out there that you could pick up for a week. Other guys that are hurt, Tony Romo and Dez Bryant of the Cowboys, have injuries. It doesn't look like Bryant is going to need any sort of surgery or miss any time. Romo with rib injury, he looks like he's going to be fine as well. I already mentioned Jamel Charles. He doesn't seem to look like he's going to miss any time. So those are the big injuries that look like they happened on Week 1 from a fantasy perspective, and some recommendations for guys you might look at as far as replacements for Week 2.